Welcome to the Wake Up to Your Life podcast. I'm your host, Colleen Odegaard. Thank you so much for tuning in. We sure do appreciate it. Today we're talking about the narrative that keeps you stuck in your life. Have you ever noticed the stories you tell yourself on repeat? The stories you say to yourself, about your partner, about your friends, about your job, all those things. Notice the stories that you tell yourself. That's the narrative that could be keeping you stuck. So today, I'm delighted to introduce to you meditation teacher and my friend, Rachel Walt. She works with people on this very thing in workshops and seminars and private clients and coaching. Rachel, thank you so much for coming to the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to be here.
Now, why did you want to talk about this?
Well, it came through my intuition, and I know now I've trained myself to really listen to that inner voice when something comes up to the surface. Usually it's relevant to talk to. I'm usually not the only one worried about the stories that I'm telling myself. So when we were talking about, what topic to dive into today, that felt really relevant because it's something I talk about with myself, with my kids, my spouse, my clients. It's kind of a universal principle.
We all deal with it.
Yes.
That is for sure. So how would you define the narrative that keeps you stuck?
Well, I think there's layers to this narrative. Some are conscious beliefs, conscious values that we are intentional about living out in our daily life. But I think what's really running this show, fortunately and unfortunately, is our subconscious beliefs. Those are beliefs that maybe our family of origin has implanted on us through our lived experience growing up in our family and our cultures. It could be a collective story. It could be a story that you imprinted maybe through even traumatic events or something unfortunate that happens. And then we take this into our subconscious and it kind of runs like a software program in our body and our neurology.
And the way that looks maybe is sort of in the background. If you mess up a project at work and maybe the story that's playing in your head is, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I'm going to get fired. I never do anything right. Yeah. That kind of thing?
Yes, that's exactly it. One that comes to my mind that I give as an example is I used to tell myself I'm really not disciplined. I'm not consistent. I'm not disciplined. Well, that's not a very empowering story, right? Because we need some sort of structure in our lives to keep ourselves going and not have our energy diffuse all over the place. So I use different tools to figure out these stories in myself. Human design was a really helpful tool for me to figure out this consistency thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, this isn't a lack of consistency or a lack of discipline. I just need different types of consistency and different types of discipline. So when I broadened my categories of organization of my life and my time and my energy, it really worked for me. And I actually ended up being consistent.
So how would you say, and how have you seen this play out for your clients, how do these narratives shape our reality?
Okay. Well, this is another really concrete example that I love to share. So I have a daughter, when she was learning how to ride her bicycle, she kept saying, it was that iffy time where she's really wobbly, fear is riding through her veins, she's like falling down in the grass and all that kind of stuff. And she was saying out loud, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I was like, you're right. And she was like, what?
Not with that attitude, you can't.
That's literally what I say to everybody. Not with that attitude, you can't. I said, well, what if you said, I can? Like, our beliefs, our patterns, our self-talk really prime our entire body to be able to function the function we're asking it to do. And so she said, okay, I'm going to try my best. I can try my best. I can try my best. So it's not like she went from I can't totally to, oh, I'm an Olympian bicycle rider, right? She just shifted the narrative to a more positive trajectory. Like, I can try my best. I can do my best. And guess what? I'm telling you, not the exact next time she was able to ride her bike without falling. Since then, she's never fallen since then. Mm-hmm. So I use this example with them in parenting a lot when the self-talk is really defeating, really negative, not empowering at all, to say, do you remember that time you changed your mind about riding a bike and it really worked out for you? You got your body on board with your mind. Let's try that this time.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. We'll get to how people can really look at this in themselves in just a minute, but I want to continue to make the case for why people should even care about this. How do those narratives affect us in our relationships? Mm-hmm. Let's say romantic relationships or in friendships or with coworkers. Those negative narratives? How
Right.
can they affect us in our relationships with other people?
Well, they really serve as a filter of how we're going to feel with that person and in the dynamic, and it plays into our behavior in that dynamic. So, for instance, another example, I really like telling stories to illustrate these subjects because it really helps us learn and make it concrete. So, my husband is a very intellectual person. I'm more of like a creative, chaotic person. And he really, really appreciates a lot of information, a lot of research before he makes a decision. I am more, okay, is it going to fulfill my requirements, my standards, my values? And does it feel good in my body? Okay, I'm good. I'm more of like an intuitive, decision maker. This is kind of a silly example, but it's very practical. On Friday nights, we watch TV together. So on Friday nights, we will spend 45 minutes looking up reviews for all the things on Netflix to watch, on Hulu to watch, all the things. And it would drive me absolutely bonkers because I'm like, don't you just trust what I want to watch? Like, doesn't that consider, that's where the story started coming in. He doesn't care what I think. Why does he care about what these reviews think more than me, right? Well, that's really disempowering. That's very disconnected. That's not loving to myself or to him. That's not giving him a generous response. And guess what my response is? Irritation, separation. I would be quiet and irritated and reactive. Well, that doesn't help anybody. When I started challenging the stories that I was telling about him and using tools to figure out what makes him click, what makes him feel good about himself. He likes to have this information. It doesn't have anything to do with me. He feels confident with his decisions and wants to be very intentional about his time and our time together through the use of that. So now we have recreated our routine where he can look at what he wants to watch. He can read all the reviews and all the things all week. And then when it comes to Friday, he gives me 2 or 3 options, and then I get to use my decision maker, my present moment decision maker, to make a choice. And it's reduced our friction by so much. And that's a silly example, but it's very practical.
I don't think it's silly at all, Rachel.
Yeah.
I love it for its practicality because that is a real life example that I think so many people can relate to, and I get it. I absolutely get it. It makes Friday nights more fun now, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
They're a lot more harmonious, I'm sure.
A lot more harmonious.
I'm sure. Okay, so can you give us some tools to use to recognize that we're even stuck in a certain narrative? Because I think some people may not even know they're stuck in a narrative. They just think, well, bad things always happen to me, or things just don't work out for me. They don't even recognize that as a story they're telling themselves.
Right.
So is that perhaps where we start? Is it recognizing that we are indeed just thinking thoughts?
Yes, I think, the first step, none of this is linear, right? It's kind of all circular. It's all happening at the same time. So we do our best. So there's not necessarily a consistent step-by-step process. But one thing you can do is notice how your body's feeling. If you're feeling tight, constricted, if you're not using your voice, if you're not standing up for yourself, not holding your boundaries, something might be misaligned there. There might be a belief, there might be a story that's running the show that's not letting you show up authentically and in alignment with your values and in alignment with your joy and your goals. So I would pay attention to your body. I would also understand that you are not your thoughts. You are not these beliefs. They are just kind of running your energy and influencing your behavior and your decision making. So when you realize that there's a little bit of separation there, you can dig in a little bit easier. Mindfulness is my go-to tool for everything. So starting to grab some quiet time when you can and just sit and notice your thoughts and see what's running. Notice any patterns in the circumstances where those negative beliefs start coming up, like bad things always happen to me. Nothing ever goes right for me. Okay, well, let's poke a hole in that. Let's see if there's any truth to that, if there's any kindness in that, if it's empowering at all. Okay, sure, we all deal with things that don't go our way, right? But that doesn't tell the whole story. And that way we can notice that it's not the whole truth and then start moving our behavior in the direction of more truth.
Yes, you are not your thoughts. And
Yes.
again, if you can just pause for a moment and, like you said, poke some holes in some of those negative thoughts, again, we become so accustomed to them at times that we're so used to them, we don't even recognize them as being thoughts. So we'll take a break right now. On the other side of this break, I'd like you to talk about more of the tools that you use to change that narrative into something more positive and more empowering. So we'll take a break. More Wake Up to Your Life right after this. Welcome back. You're watching Wake Up to Your Life here on WCNC Plus, and we are talking about rewriting the narrative, how to get unstuck if you feel stuck somewhere in your life. Rachel Walt, meditation teacher, human design expert, all kinds of things. I like to say woo, but woo, but based in a lot of good research
Practical
too.
woo,
Practical woo.
Practical
I like
woo,
that very
yeah.
much. We're talking about learning to watch your thoughts, separate from your thoughts. What are some tools people can start using today, right now, when they're done listening to us, to create more of what it is that they want and get unstuck?
Well, I think the first step is really giving yourself some acknowledgement that you're curious and you know that things could be a little bit better for yourself and you have more personal power than you probably give yourself credit for. So even just that curiosity is a huge step towards the place you're trying to go, right? So acknowledging yourself. One thing that we mentioned earlier is mindfulness, and a lot kind of goes into that mindfulness, and it can be really triggering if you have never done any mindfulness techniques, if you haven't done any personal development, or if you have traumatic experiences in your past. Mindfulness can feel very alarming at first. So be really easy with yourself and take baby steps towards that. Find a mental health expert, find a person that's an expert in mindfulness to support you in this journey. That's always, finding our resources and know that we are worthy enough to have resources and support is another really big step in kind of personal development and transformation. But as simple as just sitting in your car for 5 minutes without music on, going on a walk without a podcast in your ear, or like music in your ear, just giving some moment of space to come through. Going into nature is really nervous system regulating. It's also, we are nature, so it makes sense that when we go out into natural spaces that it can calm our mind, it can calm our body. It actually interrupts those ruminations and negative self-talks. Just being in nature does that. So that's a real simple, easy technique that you can do without having to put any, money or too much effort into it. I use meditation as a mindfulness technique a lot. I have been through a huge journey with that technique. I sit in guidance with other audios, but I also just sit in silence and start noticing my body, noticing my thoughts, just those things as well. And then human design is a huge needle mover for me as well. It's this kind of scientific meets esoteric conglomeration, synergistic output of how your energy moves. It's a blueprint of your energy that can inform some of the beliefs where they get stuck, what is a more positive trajectory, how to understand yourself so you're not telling inaccurate stories about yourself or anyone else.
That's really good. I used to be quite the meditation evangelist when I realized how much I loved it, and people don't like being told what to do. So I realized it wasn't fun. I'm like, you've got to meditate. And the pushback I always get there is that, oh, you don't know what it is in my mind. My mind's so racing, or I have ADHD. I can't meditate. And I think that's what meditation is for. It's for you for that reason. And that meditation isn't necessarily sitting there, lotus position, chanting or in silence for hours and hours. It's not that. You can do a lot in 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. Truly. And the research bear this out, shows that even 5 minutes of mind training a day can really change the neural pathways. It doesn't have to be go on a silent retreat for 6 weeks. You really can do a lot with training your mind for 5 minutes. And if it sounds like a lot of work, it really, but 5 minutes, everyone's got 5 minutes, right?
Everyone's got 5 minutes.
To pay attention.
And meet yourself where you are. If you're in the car with kids like I am and you're waiting for a practice to get over with, sit in the car, do some breathing, just notice sounds that you hear. It doesn't have to be that significant. And meet yourself in your walking practice, or if you really like to get present with rock climbing or crafting or writing, whatever your access point to presence is, when you really feel like you're in flow, yourself fully, some sort of access to joy if you've got it, meet yourself there. That's also, when you're bringing all of your attention to the present moment, that's being mindful. So you're probably already doing it and not really realizing it. So when you can start noticing that and meet yourself there, you can, blow it up and make it really impactful and intentional in your life.
So spending quiet time, it's interesting to me. I don't know if you find this to be the case too, but how many people have a hard time sitting in silence for even just 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah. Especially nowadays with all of the distractions we have with technology and our schedules are so packed and people are demanding, stuff from us here and there and everywhere. It can be really hard to sit in silence. We don't ever sit in a waiting room anymore without scrolling on your phone. I mean, I do the same thing. So this isn't like a virtuous thing, but it is going to be very helpful to you if you can find these little snippets. And you are literally building neural pathways. So it is going to take some repetition. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some intention to build new roads in your brain and in your nervous system. So be really patient with yourself and easy with yourself. Some people really thrive in, jumping into the deep end and going on some huge retreat to interrupt their patterns. But if that's not you, it's not a lot of people, especially in a modern life where our nervous systems are already so activated. Finding those little bits of time and building from there, starting with 2 minutes, going to 3, going to 5, going to 10, can be really helpful and soothing to your nervous system. And before you know it, you're right where you wanted to be.
You've mentioned the nervous system a few times in this conversation. Can we talk about how that fits into the bigger conversation that we're having about getting unstuck and the narrative that we tell ourselves about ourselves?
Yes. So I have a speech language pathology background, so I have a foundational knowledge of the nervous system in a rehabilitation kind of perspective. But then when I started integrating these tools and working with people, I noticed that the nervous system activation, response, and our subsequent behavior is so relevant in basically every single thing we do. For instance, I can be really fiery. I can be a little reactive or impulsive, some might say. That is a nervous system response. If I feel in threat, or I don't have enough resources as far as sleep, or if I haven't eaten, or if I'm dehydrated, or if I have a huge stressor in my life, I'm going to tend to be more reactive as a protection mechanism. That is your nervous system at work. But it doesn't always look like that. I was at a leadership dinner not too long ago, and I have been in a transitional phase in my professional life. Where do I want to focus my energy? Where do I want to go to take it to the next level, basically? And it's felt very confusing as of late. And these two people at the table, very lovely professionals, were hammering questions at me as far as like, well, what's your ask? Like, what do you want? Blah, blah, blah. That totally shut me down. I had no clue. And then I had this just shower of shame over me of like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. Why am I even doing this? How did I get here? And I totally shut down. I got quiet. And then the next day I took that experience on a walk. So bilateral movement is so good for your nervous system. If you've done therapy and you've done EMDR, the rapid eye movement helps recode some of these nervous system loops. But I took it on a walk, and it came to me as like an aha, like, oh, that was a nervous system total shutdown. I felt threatened, and then my mind started telling all these stories about who I was and what I was doing wrong. And so when we realize that, we can depersonalize some of it, and the shame doesn't have to keep us from making the next step, making the next decision, realizing, no, I'm a competent person. I'm just in a time in transition, and those questions and that confrontation was not helpful to me at that time. So it helps you understand what's really going on here behind the scenes, so you don't, again, tell a story that's not empowering, not true, and you can actually work with the facts, work with your body, work with the power that you do have to make steps in the right direction.
Thank you so much for sharing that personal story. That means a lot, because I agree, always on this podcast, when I was doing it before it came here on WCNC Plus, I always used myself as the guinea pig, the example, and would take real life stories for that reason, because I think that's what helps people to understand and get what we're talking about and how to put what we're learning into practical everyday use. So, had you not done that for yourself, taken that leadership dinner thing on the walk with yourself and processed it, you could have kept telling yourself the story, oh my God, those women thought I didn't have my act together. I don't have my act together.
I mean, I could have shut down my company. You know what I mean?
Correct. Correct. Had you kept going that way.
It was that severe, yeah.
Right. That's a pattern that would have kept you stuck. So that's why this work matters. That's why it's important to catch this stuff. If you want to create more of the life that you want, or more of the experiences you want, we have to get out of our own ways. So, on that note, we'll take another break and be back with more tools that you can use to help you get unstuck. You're watching Wake Up to Your Life. We're back with more Wake Up to Your Life. Rachel, I want to ask you other ways that we can rewrite the narrative, other ways we can rewrite the story. You talked about your very personal experience a moment ago. What are some other things that we can do?
You know what's really helpful is an experience called tapping. It's similar, it has the same scientific foundation as EMDR in traditional talk therapy, but it takes a limiting belief that you have and it acknowledges it while you're tapping on yourself. So there's a whole pathway that you can use, like top of the head, different meridians, if you're familiar with acupuncture meridians of energy in our body. But it really you don't even need to know that. You can even just do simple, again, bilateral, meaning both sides of your body tapping. And first you acknowledge the belief. So for instance, with the example I gave about the leadership dinner, my belief at that time was, I don't know what I'm talking about. So I would start with, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I fully love and accept myself, right? That feels true in my body. You can't make a bunch of stuff up. Your body knows. Your body's way smarter than our minds are sometimes. Our bodies know the truth. So I do some tapping and I acknowledge that belief. Okay, even though I feel like I don't even know what I'm talking about and I should just shut everything down, I deeply love and accept myself. And then after you acknowledge it, you kind of allow that circuit to be complete, I guess, then you move it towards a more positive direction. So again, kind of like the bike riding example, we're not going to go from 0 to 1,000. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm the most competent professional. I know exactly what I'm doing in my business at all times, right? Because again, our body knows better. So I'm still tapping, I take a deep breath, and then I move it towards a little bit more positive. But I'm trying my best. I know that I can be in progress. I can try my best. I'm doing everything I can to be a good steward of my business, and I deeply love and accept myself.
What I like about this, it's not toxic positivity, which we hear so much of. Ew, we don't like that. That's our reaction to toxic positivity. You're right. You can't go from, what am I doing? I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be at this leadership dinner, to I'm a fabulous entrepreneur making millions of dollars and I'm the best one out there, because the body knows that's not true.
Right.
But simply saying, yeah, I believe in myself. I'm a competent person. I care for myself. That's a much more empowering thought.
Yeah.
And it's not toxic positivity.
Right. And a lot of times we get so specific with our criticisms of ourselves or the negative stories we tell about ourselves, or our partners, or our culture, or our family members, our friends. If we can widen it a little bit and go a little broader with our beliefs, that can ease some of the tension with it too. So even if I said, like you said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I can trust myself, it just broadens it a little bit, that I don't have to know what I'm doing right at this very moment, because I can trust myself in the long term, in the long range, with a higher perspective. And that feels true, but also doesn't pigeonhole me in this one negative story that I'm telling myself.
Rachel, as we get to the point where we have to wrap up this conversation, what's one small step that viewers and listeners can take away today?
I want you to know that you have more personal power than maybe you think you do. There are cultural dynamics that are going on that provide a lot of barriers for a lot of different types of people in different circumstances. So it's not to discount that at all, but I think we all could do ourselves a lot more if we know how much personal power we do have, so we can look for solutions instead of staying stuck in the problem. Number one. Number two is, again, acknowledge yourself. And number three is meet yourself where you are. If that's in the car, turn off the songs for a little bit and sit in that 1 minute of silence, 2 minutes of silence. Even if it's tapping and you don't even know what beliefs it is, but you're meeting yourself there with just tapping and noticing your body and noticing your thoughts, that's good too.
Very good. Anything that you'd like listeners to know, where they can find you, plug anything that you're doing?
Yeah, you can meet me on Instagram. I'm at Rachel Walton Co., or We Are Crafting Good is my business. You can see me on craftinggood1g.com. And I'm on Substack. I do a Substack I just launched. There's a lot of stories over there if you want to listen or read some stories. It's called The Oak Letters, and that's a fun new kind of terrain that I'm exploring. I'd love to see you over there too.
Oh, I'll join you over there.
Yeah.
I love to read stuff on Substack. Rachel Walt, this has been very helpful. Thank you so much. And thanks to you for watching Wake Up to Your Life. Let me know if there's something you'd like to see featured here on this show. I'd love to hear from you, okay? I want to create content that is serving you. Again, go out and do one thing, change one thought. Wake up to your life.